Mini Wargamer Dave here from miniwargaming.com. Welcome, Wargamers, to the Shrine of Chaos. Today we have a very special guest, one who has been in the community, in the industry, podcasting, for many a year. In fact, I was just told Khorne years, because Khorne counts in eights. So that makes me even more happy. Without further ado, Paul Murphy from Forge the Narrative. How's it going, Paul?
Hey man, thanks for having me. It's really great to be here. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I'm been podcasting for one corn.
For one Khorne, exactly. And we're going to be talking about a number of different things, one of which is Khorne a little bit versus Blood Angels. Not in the sense of like what would happen, but the virtues of each and which one is better or not. Uh, I think that is a very good thing to talk about. No, there's not a Cursed City giveaway today. There's no giveaway today. It is a discussion. So if you're here for a giveaway, uh, stay for the Khorne, because that you will get. Also, I just have to say this, Paul, because for you, your podcast, it is something that you've done. And it's funny, I'm telling you, like, this is the first time you're hearing it. No, just so you guys know, Paul. Okay, so Paul, he has done his podcast for that many years, probably more than that now, right? So it's 8 plus. And it's purely for love of the hobby. You don't have a Patreon. You just simply, that's what you do. You podcast because you love the hobby so much. It's pure passion for you. Which is fantastic. I love it. Either way, if you can, and you can make some money from the hobby, awesome. If you don't make money from the hobby, it's still awesome because ultimately it is activity surrounding the hobby. So that's cool. That's awesome. Which I believe there is something to be said about journalistic integrity, though, when you're talking about stuff. So, like, when you give an opinion about something, like, there's no sponsor, there's no.
Well, I am an unabashed like fanboy of certain things. Like I don't want to hide my bias in any way, but it's kind of like what's that Talladega Nights? It's like the cougar on the front. It's just us. We represent just what we want to talk about.
Right.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's kind of liberating in some way. I'm not saying there's not enrichment for this, and certainly did it and started it because I sat around and talked about Warhammer all day, and this is like before. Like there were some podcasts, and as I understand, I think I'm like the third generation of podcast. I felt like the second generation.
Okay.
But I think we're technically the third if people remember it back that far. And it's like, well, we might as well just record it, and somebody might
What does that
enjoy it.
mean? What does that mean, the third generation
So
podcast?
back when, I mean, again, we've been doing this for 8 plus years, eight and some change or whatever. There were a couple of years before that, 2 or 3 years, I think, before that, when people kind of burst on the scene with podcasts as being like these, 4 or 5 hour long things
Mhm.
recorded, and then most podcasts don't get past like episode 11,
Ah,
10 or 11. And so some of them, had their whole life cycle before even that second generation of podcasters came in. And I kind of independent characters who I love. I believe they're in that second generation category. And then we came along after that. And that's why I think we're the third generation.
okay, that makes sense.
I don't know that to be true. Like it's not on Wikipedia anywhere, but it's just what it feels like.
It feels like uh, it's so funny though. It's like if I were a podcaster, it's funny. I don't consider myself a podcaster, although the Shrine of Chaos is available in podcast form. I guess technically, yes, I am a podcaster. So if I were to say that, I would consider myself the eighth generation podcaster.
Hey, look, who's to tell you that you're wrong? I don't know.
But here's the irony: I've actually been doing this for, geez, like since 2012.
Oh, I remember your early videos of like how to make a table or whatever. Like that's
Yeah.
it's one of those to where. But you think
Oh,
though that none of that stuff was available. Like YouTube's still kind of in its infancy. Nobody knew how to do some of this stuff, so that stuff was relevant. I'm not saying you can't change and evolve, and certainly my show has changed and evolved over time. And the you build everything builds on top of everything else. Like, but I love the cast that we've got right now, like truly knowledgeable, entertaining war gamers and hobbyists and that kind of stuff. And so you kind of have to evolve, but it's all iterative. And some of the things just wasn't accessible back then, and folks like doing what we do make it accessible, and now got us to where we're doing now, talking about this kind of stuff. Like you say, you're not a podcaster. The idea, the very nature of podcasting has changed to now us being on video
mhm.
could technically still be a podcast.
Still a podcaster, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's switch gears here for a second, and let's talk about something that is happening right now in the community. Okay, let's talk about this thing. So,
I'm so jealous.
okay, Cursed City. So apparently, I'm holding something that is like, it's like if we were playing the game and the mission objective was the prize, and you wanted to get the prize, and there's limited amount of prize. That's what this would be considered right here. And so, what are your thoughts on that whole scarcity, limited quantity run? It reminds me of Space Hulk of old, where there's like, we have a limited quantity here, and then it's like sold out everywhere. It's impossible to get. So why do you think that is? Why do you think that happens?
Well, look, I mean, the quick answer is supply and demand, and then there's the other thing of it's like I don't want to compare it to like a PlayStation 5 or whatever, but do you really think that everyone trying to get a PlayStation 5 wants a PlayStation 5? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe, or maybe they're just kind of caught up in the moment. You know, again, I don't know any of this, but I like when you're dealing with any kind of physical thing, there's a capacity issue, there's a supply chain issue, and then you have the backdrop of the COVID situation. I mean, not to bring it up, but it's ever present, and it has affected things and how things flow. It is never good for a company to not be able to put things in people's hands that want them. But there's like this, you know what I mean? So
wait,
no one's like,
it's not
I don't
good
think
to-
there's artificial. I don't think artificial scarcity exists. I think there's scarcity, and I think the scarcity is like a real concern. But this is one man's opinion outside looking in.
Right.
And so I think scarcity is a real thing, but I think the scarcity is more environmental or some other factor other than artificial.
So Lorcooney says it's been confirmed that there will be more waves. Don't worry. Have you heard more waves?
I haven't, but I haven't heard of any waves or whatever. Again, I think that it's one of those, like what we've seen, if we were to go on historical precedent from the things recently, is that there's been like an initial run of things, and then once the demand is up, it goes web exclusive or something like that. But hey, also, like my local game store has some copies available right now, so it might not be available online from where you are currently getting it from or from the parent company, but check out some local game stores. I'm sure they wouldn't mind selling you something if they have it.
Yeah. So have you looked at it? Have you looked at the game much?
I have not. So again, I'm a 40K person. So a lot of this, I also am on the the preview thing from GW as well. So it's one of the stuff we talk about, new releases on the show and that kind of thing. But I don't typically get access to the Sigmar type stuff, and this is very, very rooted in the Sigmar stuff. Mm-hmm. But those figures, and I'm pointing at them on the screen, are gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I think each one of them tells a story, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it.
You know what? I think that's just it. Because when I picked this up, as primarily a 40K player, when I picked this up and I turned it over and I looked at the minis, I was thinking, yes, that is cool.
Look at the vampire guy in the bear cloak or something, and the witch hunter. Like these all,
yeah.
You could get behind each of them if that was your thing.
It is. You know what? I think you said it just right there. Each one is so narrative, is so flavorful, that you could really immerse yourself pretty awesomely in this.
Like with Silver Tower and with Blackstone Fortress, it's something that. So part of what I love about this hobby is the figures themselves. I like manipulating these things on the table, having this physical, tactile thing. I like spending time with it. This is one of the hobby aspects. Is when you're painting a miniature, you're spending hours with this miniature, and I make them in little poses, and I think about what they're going to do on the table and that kind of stuff. And and then so when I get down even to the troop level on the 40K table, like I have like a little story in my head of even what the basic grunt, the intercessor with no name, does or whatever. He's done something.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that aspect of the game. Some people like that aspect, but don't like playing a game of 40K, a strategy game where it's not cooperative or we're against each other, or this, there's a million different reasons, a million different games out there. This Cursed City, the Blackstone Fortress, and Silver Tower, it allows you to experience this with friends of yours that may not be into your primary jam. I kind of think of like 40K is my wife. I have to spend all my time with 40K, in a good way, like this, what I mean? But all these other things are, kind of distractions from that sometimes. but now you get to and other people don't want to enjoy that with you, but now you can get other people to enjoy these types of games, and you're still scratching that itch with the figures and the dice and the story and the evocative elements and that kind of stuff.
So when you pick up a game, what do you think is the number one thing that draws you to wanting to get it?
Like a board game itself?
Like this for example, right? Like this or any of the other ones that they've put
Yes.
out. Is it minis?
So
Is that what you would say?
it's definitely the minis, and then I like the cooperative nature of it. I like the idea that I can take those figures and use them in a game of Sigmar, and I feel like you will be able to.
Okay.
So I think that's been the case with all the rest of the stuff. Or if there's demons, use them in 40k.
Let us know what you guys think too. Leave your comments. So I would agree. I'd say that's the first thing. That's what would draw me to a game. It's like, how do the minis look? Oh, cool. So I'm drawn in now. Next is gameplay. Would you say is gameplay?
See, I play a ton of board games, so I like having like an arsenal of things that I can bring out for whatever the audience is. So sometimes when I'm looking at a board game, I'll look at, are they cute pieces? Do they look like they're well designed? Is there something that's going to bring someone to focus on the table that may not be there? Looks, and you're there at a dinner party or whatever, or you're having drinks, and like, oh well, let's pull out this game, and what's going to get them actually playing.
Right.
So it has to have a great look to it. So that's why, you look at this, and this has everything. Like, man, I'm kind of into that kind of creepy look, gothic look. I'm definitely kind of into vampires, maybe more than I care to admit, and I like the idea of dungeon crawling and exploring, leading up to a boss. It's not a campaign, but it's like D&D light almost. And that's what I look for in that game.
How much importance do you think you would place on the world or the lore that is attached to the minis and the sculpts?
I personally want to know it, but I don't need it. Like, I think, because I think that, so I'm one of the games that I play most frequently with non-gamers is a game called Tokaido.
Okay.
Which is, it's a game where you're playing a traveler, and you're traveling across like turn of the century or medieval Japan, and you're doing things like stopping to paint a picture, stopping to eat some fish, stopping to get a bath in a hot springs. You're doing these things that you're not thinking is typically competitive. And there's actually, there's very little die rolling in the game at all. Mm-hmm. And you just move as you want to across the thing. So, but there's enough there that tells the story on the pieces itself that I don't need to know anything about medieval Japan.
Right.
But the game is so well designed that it draws me into it to where I might want to know more. This has the same effect. Like, the pieces, I think, tell enough of the story to where if I took it at face value, I'm still going to be fine with that. But being the nerd lore nerd that I am, I want to dig deeper into it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the setting, the models and everything just kind of pulls you in. And I saw a comment somebody left, and I agree with this, is that it's a good way of introducing non-players, non-wargamers to the world that it's a part of, especially because the minis are compatible. So just what a great way. Because here's the thing, man. Like, I don't play Warhammer Fantasy, but I like the lore, and this looks fun, and I want to play this. Or the Age of Sigmar. I play a little bit of Age of Sigmar, not nearly as much, like 5%. I would say, compared to 40k that I play, right? But something like this is like, oh, cool. What's that?
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So how important would be painting those miniatures to you?
It's important.
To play with.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's not something like this. If I'm just playing it, not making a battle report about it, I would still play it without painted minis. Bat Rep, 100% not. They would have to be painted minis, because there's a certain standard we live by. They have to be painted.
Fair enough.
But like, yeah, and that helps, honestly, like that helps me to immerse myself in the world that much more. And the better the paint job, the more likelihood that character's going to die. You just know.
I thought you were going to say better roll, and I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
No, it's not how it works at all. It's always better paint job, and like, is it freshly painted? Freshly painted, there's no chance it's going to survive.
It is trajectory for death. The line is like this, not like this. It is.
That's right. There's no way. What about like game length? What would you say is like let's say this takes a couple hours to play this, right? Like that seems reasonable, right?
Yeah, but see, for me, I don't think that I'm the average like game. I can sit down and I will grind. I don't mind a grindy game. Like there's this game I want to play called um I can't God, I can't remember the name. I'll find it after this. But it's a game where you play progressive. Like you play through the whole the whole game, and then you start over again. But you're playing the same family in the next generation. And so I will sit down and play 16 hours of this game. King's Dilemma. That's the name of the game. King's Dilemma. I've
Yep.
not played this game yet, but I want to play this game. It is after post pandemic. That's my first thing: is get as many people around to play this game as humanly possible.
Yeah.
But I like games that typically, if I'm playing in a social setting of folks that are not gamers, or maybe they're not the long-term gamers or whatever, is 45 minutes to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect length,
Yeah.
and that includes the teach. Like I think to be able to explain how to play the game and then get moving with it.
Right. Yeah. My feeling about that is if it takes that long, let's say even including the teaching aspect, right? If you were to just simply play the game, learn it, play it, if it's within that time, cool. If you want to have more of a relaxed time about it and there's stuff in between, like there's talk and there's banter and whatever, and you can make like an evening out of it, like 3, 4, 5 hours out of it, you have that option. It's able to do that. Perfect.
Yep.
Great. Because that kind of ends up happening most of the time anyway, right? But if you have this thing in your mind where it's like, no, this is you're gonna have to commit yourself to 4 to 5 hours. That's like, no, it's too.
And you're doing math, and you're doing.
Yeah, like
I'd play that game still. I'd still play that game.
that's different. That's like a D&D. Like for that, that's different. It's like okay,
Yeah.
that actually could be as little or as long as you want it to be. But that going in, it's like okay, here's an evening. We're gonna automatically just do an evening. It's
Somebody's coming over for that specifically.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's how 40K works. Like, it's when we're set up to play 40K, our 40K play dates, we're coming over, we're going to play some 40K for the evening.
Play dates, that's exactly what they are. So I gotta just putting the attention back onto you for a sec here, Paul. So you're a podcaster. You do so much in the community. Like it's nuts. Because when I first met you, which was that in person? Was that at
had it been
Adepticon? Yeah, I think it was at Adepticon a number of years ago. That might have been 4 or 5 years ago. Does that sound right? Something like that?
Half a Khorne?
Half a Khorne ago. I love it. Okay, so we're speaking in the numbers again. And so I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, you forged a narrative. Awesome podcast. And then you pop up. Okay, so you're a Nova, and you're doing the Nova charities, and you're involved with that. And then you're gathering people together, and you're doing collaborations, other podcast roundtable stuff, and so you're like you like to be everywhere in many things.
Well, I like talking about Warhammer. That's really what it comes down to. And when you can put your voice to something that means something, either that's because of we're bringing the tournament experience virtually to people, like we did for the Las Vegas Open, or we're putting focus on a charity that relied typically on people being in person, but we couldn't be in person last year. So I was happy to lend my voice and in any awareness that I could bring to some of these things. But one of the things I'm very passionate about is I think that tournament culture is a extension of our hobby. It's not that everyone has to get to, but I think it's a natural extension of our hobby. And I love bringing that to people because, in a world where we could constantly rule things out. Like, I don't want to do that. Or I think that everybody that plays in tournaments is this, or everybody who plays in this is that, or they're not this or not that kind of thing. And that's what is it? Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
That's right.
So I love bringing this what is predominantly a positive thing of the culture of tournaments and bringing that to folks. And so that's why you've seen me probably attached to and doing commentary for lots of tournaments, and then with the charity side of thing, like this is. The world needs people that can spare things sometimes, and if you can, then why not do it to a good cause that other people that have been vetted and people believe in and are doing good things for people. And so happy to do that whenever I can as well.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. I love it. It's driven by pure passion for the hobby.
Yeah. Again,
Right.
honestly, I would talk about Warhammer all day. Like they say, some people ask like, "How did you get so and so?" And it's not that I got them. It's like most people that do this actually just want to talk about Warhammer. So you could just call them or message them, and you probably want to talk about Warhammer if that's what they do normally.
So, okay, so you've told me this before, and I apologize. I don't remember. So this isn't your day job, obviously, because it's all for
Yep.
fun, right? So if it could be your day job, would you choose that over your current day job?
Oh, in a heartbeat. I mean, to say that, like, if but it's work. Anything's work, like anything. But I kind of treat this. I treat everything with a little bit of passion, a little bit of forethought, a little bit of professionalism, and this is just, again, it's like a extension of that for me. I think if I'm going to spend time doing this, why not try to do as good as I can? It's like painting a miniature. Like if you're going to paint a miniature, why not try your best?
Try your best.
And so that's what. So just bring it through to this, and I know that people care about audio, so I'm mostly an audio show, so I focus on that, and you know. I put some little loose rules on that, and otherwise, you just get people that also share that passion of talking about it and are good at it, have ideas to bring to the table, or can challenge you in some case. I mean, like challenge each other to get the best out of each other, and then make it sound good. I edit the shows too, so it doesn't come out like perfect every time. A little bit of editing magic, but sometimes but that's the thing. It's you spend the time to make it sound good. But I would definitely. This is like my retirement plan. I'll talk about Warhammer if somebody lets me.
Would you accept a sponsorship?
Yeah. Actually, yeah. I mean, I have sponsors. I mean, it's one of those to where, there are, on the not to take us on the business side of things, but you have to host the website. You've got to there's
That's fair.
stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate to have some sponsors that allow to basically me to keep it cost neutral this entire time,
Yeah.
and continue to do and focus on what I want to do, which is just again bring in this like. The competitive people don't think my show is competitive.
Hmm.
The non-tournament folks
Hmm.
think my show is too tournament focused.
Interesting.
So I try to, but I like what like one of the core premises of the show is I don't want to waste anybody's time. I don't want anyone to waste their time. So I want to help people get what they want to get out of the hobby. So even when we do army list reviews, people will write in like when they say, "Can you help me with a list?" Well, I asked them is like, "Are we making model choices here? Do you just want to play with some cool looking things that you think are cool?" Um, are you fine with buying new things? Are you trying to win more games than you lose? I look at there's always inevitably, someone, how was my list? Like, well, you should change this. Well, I'm just going to play it like it is. Like, okay, that's cool. Like, hey, that's it's like getting advice from anything or anybody out there. It's all fine, but I ask those questions of people, so I want to help them get what they want out of the hobby. And sometimes that's winning lots of games. Sometimes that's looking as cool doing it, or playing with whatever their vanity unit is.
Yeah. Corn Berserkers.
It could be. So yeah, how to get the most out of Khorne Berserkers? We've certainly had that discussion. Khorne Berserkers are actually pretty good right now, but I mean,
They are, yeah.
in previous years, that's some
Awesome.
of the stuff that we talked about. It's so that's what I I enjoy doing it. I would do it all the time, and one of the missions is like it's a core tenet of just we talk about the things that save people time when they go to start rolling dice.
Okay. So going back for a second about retirement, I have to just read this little thing by Dakafang Morequest. He says, "My retirement plan is it going to turn 70, and when the family is all around me, I is taking my shirt off, grabbing a chopper, and going out in the forest to fight a bear. Because no matter what happens, the family will has a legendary story. Grandpa killed a bear with his chopper, or Grandpa was killed fighting a bear with his chopper."
That I can't argue with that. Sometimes you gotta go out on your own terms.
Yeah, I mean that's okay. That actually reminds me of a question that I was asked yesterday, which I'll bring to you as well. If you had to be a character in the 41st millennium, a Warhammer 40K character, or anything that exists,
Okay.
what would you be?
Okay, so specifically in the 41st millennium, or
40K.
just in Warhammer 40K
Warhammer 40K.
or Warhammer future sci-fi
Yeah. Let's go with that.
sanguinius.
Saying wouldn't. Okay, I guess it would depend on the timeline there. Why Sanguinius?
If if it's in Warhammer 40K, my answer's still the same.
Okay. So, or that interesting answer. So, why Sanguinius?
Okay, so as you know, we're going to talk about that. Maybe talk about this if we get to it. As Blood Angels are, that's my jam. So
Mm-hmm.
when I started playing 40K, it was actually my first army was Harlequins.
Mm.
And then, as an extension of Harlequins was that one box, and as an extension of Harlequins, I went to Eldar. But then, I saw that book that had, I think it was the compendium, the White Dwarf compendium, that had what we know would soon become Tycho or whatever, surrounded by as a golden armored figure surrounded by Blood Angels.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, let me know more about this. And then I go to read the story of the original Horus Heresy story. It's just a couple of pages long, kind of thing. And then the Blood Angels have this secret. They try to present their artist. I don't weather my Blood Angels armor because I think that they would take the time to make it immaculate before they went into battle. I think they go into battle with purpose, but a lot of this purpose is to distract people from the fact that they are harboring this tragedy within them, this battle that they have to fight in order to do the Emperor's work. I think that they are some of the there's a lot of grays in 40K where there's not. It's hard to pick who the good guy is from a certain perspective. It's hard to pick who the bad guy is from a certain perspective. But I think there are a few heroic factions within 40K, and I consider the Blood Angels to be one of those heroic factions. But it's not without this internal struggle, compromise, sacrifice, and I love that. And the fact that they may or may not be space vampires totally had nothing to do with it.
No, nothing. And would you say that they're Khorne?
No, I would not. But Sanguinius.
Okay.
Sanguinius, I think, is one of those moments. Like, I think that. Are you a Doctor Who fan at all? And I'm not like a super Doctor Who fan, but I think they reference like fixed points in time.
Okay. Yeah.
That cannot be changed. And I think that the death of Sanguinius is one of those things that is fixed. It is anchored in the cosmic fabric and can never be undone and or changed because it is that important to the story and fabric of Warhammer 40K.
Interesting. Yeah. So you would definitely choose Primarch Sanguinius.
Yes.
Okay.
If you put me into, like, if we want to, let's just say the Sanguinius is never coming back.
You don't think? Yeah, it's hard.
He's not. He's honestly, I think his death is fixed or whatever.
Yeah.
Dante is going to be my answer for 40K, but I'm sticking with Sanguinius.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that they have this. They're poets, they're artists, they're all these things, and yet when it's time for battle, they have all this confliction that they are able to push to the back that I think normal people couldn't do. Regular Joes like us could not do, but the Blood Angels do that, and I think that's part of what makes them so fun for me to play, fun for me to imagine that fantasy of playing on the tabletop.
Do you think Sanguinius exists somewhere? His essence or his soul? Do you think he exists? He could be brought back?
See, that's such a tough question because I think, like, I've obviously thought about this a lot, but I don't. I think that if he exists, he's probably trapped in like a jewel or a bauble somewhere and almost forgotten. It's going to be like one of those like Tolkien-esque things that 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now, the Silmaril is going to roll out from under someone's bed and Sanguinius is going to pop out.
Okay, so I guess so he does then.
He might.
Okay,
I think it's remote. I'm saying, but if he does, that's the situation that's out there.
Okay, yep, that's fair. Could you guess what I would be?
Oh, well, see, I don't know. See, I got to look at the context. Is that you questioned my Primarch choice, so I'm going to go with Khorne.
That you would think that would be the answer, right?
Okay.
And so, what do you guys think? What do you think I would be? What would make sense? Before I tell you.
And I want to talk about Khorne for a bit too, because I don't even mind telling you. I couldn't give two flips about Khorne at all. Didn't care at all until I read Aaron Dipsky Bowden write him, and I'm like, I need to know more.
Betrayer, is that the one that did it for you?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Ah, I love right. Karn is my favorite character in that book, and up there all time. In top 8 characters, Karn's up there.
Oh, I like the top 8, sticking on theme.
Yeah.
Sticking on theme.
Yeah. Absolutely. Did you? What's another one that he's heavily featured in? So there's that, obviously. There was another one though. I think it's not a one that I listened to because I listened to the audiobooks.
Yep.
I think it's called The Eightfold Path.
I've not read that. I was thinking that I know that exists.
That's a very short one though. And then,
Okay.
but there's another one though. There's another one where he basically it's when Angron first inherits his children, right? And Karn is the only one who can go in there and basically say, hey, you know, your sons need you. Please don't kill me, by the way. And he's in there having a conversation with Angron. He's the only one that I can actually speak to him and speak reason to him. What was that? Such a good listen. Does that sound familiar?
So I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't place the book either. But there's many times when Angron is like they have him trapped and basically quarantined, basically off where he can only do minimal damage to their side, and then they let him out a bit. And I think that's God. And there's a moment in Saturnheim that no spoilers. I'm not going to spoil anything on this show, but if you have not gotten to that point in that part in the series yet, there is a moment where there's a connection being shared by two important people, and Angron is one of them, and it's pretty spectacular. I won't spoil anything, and I don't want to see anybody spoil it in the chat either. But I think whenever you get there, we'll have to have another chat.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. And I think it's something Deshea. Shadow of Deshea. Is that it?
Is that a book?
Maybe Angron. It might even be called just Angron. The thing is, like, I went on this kick where I was just listening to a whole bunch of World Eater stuff, and a Betrayer included.
Yep.
And I just like, okay, what more? I want to consume more. And so it kind of all melded together for me in my brain. After
Well, once you read, especially, how many Horus Heresy books have there been? 60.
Oh, geez,
and then you start. And then you start counting the Siege of Terra books, and so they do. I don't want to say they blend together, but some of the stories are like take place right after one after the other, and so they do kind of. And then sometimes they'll intermingle with themselves, and that's God. Give it up to the writers for sharing their characters so freely between each other, and because that doesn't happen in all series.
No. And something I'll mention about the first audiobook that I listened to, which was Aaron Dembski Bowden's Black Legion. It was the second book, though, right? Because Talon of Horus is the first.
Yep.
And then Black Legion is the second. So Black Legion was the first one that I listened to. I kind of went out of order there, but it was, honestly, at the time, I didn't know that the Talon of Horus existed. So I'm like, oh, Black Legion, listening.
Yeah.
And then when I got to the end, it was like, wait, there's a part 1 of this. And so I went back and I listened to it too. But
those are good stories.
There's right, like Abaddon.
Because Abaddon, Blood Angels hate Abaddon because he holds the Talon of Horus, and so it basically invokes their thoughts about Horus and Sanguinius when they see Abaddon, and so there's this hatred, and it's always been a rule they hate, kind of thing or whatever. And so by proxy, I've also never appreciated Abaddon until some of these stories.
Until some of the stories, right?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, just kind of like you read a bit of the lore, like the character lore on the character sheet in the codex, right? So it's like, Abaddon, Black Crusades, evil, kill
13 failed crusades,
And so that's just so superficial, right? But when you get into these books, and that so many authors are so talented. And this one, because we're talking about this one in particular, ADB, like he's when it comes to like making relatable characters, he has that writing gift for sure, right? So when you hear it from Abaddon's perspective, it's like, man, I have so much respect for him, and he becomes a real being somehow. He just becomes real It's like Abaddon is real in the future.
Well, they've backed into it, so we know that Abaddon is supposed to be this epic, galaxy shattering individual in 40K, but we have, I mean, not we, everyone, I'm sure some people have, but I don't personally know too many people that really appreciated him or respected him for that. But then when you start to read these stories and you can see the character coming into their own, and like, why did any of these traitor Primarchs bend the knee to him? Like, I'm actually starting to get it now. And as someone who didn't want or have any care to get it, I actually, these books have made me get it. And that's a testament to the stories themselves.
Yeah, 100%. And, actually, that actually reminds me of something from, I can't remember which book it was, whether it was Talon of Horus or Black Legion, but there was an instance. This doesn't give anything, by the way. This is just anecdotal, cool thing.
I'm trying to be totally spoiler free.
Yeah, it happens over the course of like one page, and it's like just this tiny little detail that I really, that made me just love Abaddon. And he was meeting certain characters, and because Space Marines have eidetic memories, right? They just kind of remember things forever, which I didn't know until I read that, by the way. That was cool.
Yeah. They got all kind of stuff. They're supposed to be stealthy. They can hide right in front of you, even though they're 8 foot tall.
Nuts, right? Like,
yeah.
Wow. Like, they're even more superhuman than we thought they were.
Yep.
But so he remembered minute details about these characters, and he paid them respect, each one individually. And he had this like meeting with them, and it was almost like he was like this regal, almost like a king.
Yeah, chaos. The idea of chaos and whirling mass wasn't present. It was leader.
It was leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was like, man, that is the trait of a good leader in general, not just like a leader in the 41st millennium or a chaos leader, but like that is a trait that one could adopt, and it would make them a better leader in life. And so I'm like, man, that is so cool. That's so cool. Yeah. I love Abaddon. And then I went back. I'm like, how did Aaron think of that? Like, where does he come up with this stuff? And so I'm like, man, that's just the talent in the writing, right? Because for me to like get so immersed in that story, and for Abaddon to become painted so real in my mind, it's just awesome.
Wait till you read some of these Siege of Terra books, and he really, it's like, I don't say coming into his own or whatever, because he's really always been this type of character. But if you had any doubts about him being the big bad villain of 40K, these will erase all those doubts.
Those I have not listened to. And I will, because I've never actually, it's always been alluded to. Anything I've ever heard or read or listened to, it's always been alluded to that all this stuff's happening and that he's done it. Yeah. I've never actually went through the nitty-gritty details of it.
It's even in these books, again, making me care about characters I didn't care about. Perturabo, like, does anybody in the chat care about Perturabo? I don't.
There's someone here that cares about him.
Yeah, but if you don't, you will. Like, and it's actually there's so many scenes that, again, whatever. We can talk about the books all day. I know we didn't talk about just about lore, but I think that these are things. There's so much there for you to sink your teeth into. So this becomes, and I've always felt this way, but I think it's growing with people that it's more than just putting plastic dudesmen on a table and rolling some dice. Like, you can really make this about something that is more, that it transcends just the tabletop experience. And that kind of goes back to, why do I do what I do? It's like, cause I love doing that. Like, when you're coming to a tournament and you're across the table from someone, like, hey, we're even like we have so much more in common than we would ever suspect, simply because we share this hobby. And that comes out over the course of, what is technically, some people might call it a beer and pretzels game, or it could be a slobber, a knuckle busting slobber knocker. It's going to come out. All these cool things that we didn't know about each other that we share are going to come out over this shared experience that we have. And I love talking about it.
Yeah, it's so cool. Okay, so I saw a comment in the chat here, and I just have to talk about it because Pretoria Gaming says, let's talk about We All Hate Lorgar. So first off, I don't hate Lorgar. In fact, he is very empathizable when you listen to or read The First Heretic. Have you had a chance to listen to that one?
I no, I haven't. So that was one of the ones that. So when the series started, you could kind of skip around or whatever, and
Mhm.
then I read the one right after that. I was like, wait, they just talked about that, so I probably can get by without reading that one.
Right.
But I have it.
Oh, okay. Okay. That was one of the. That was right after Black Legion. I listened to that and like because in my mind like word bearers, okay, yeah, it's chaos, which I appreciate all chaos, but it's like on the lower. It's like okay, word bearers, and then like oh, but you know it's cool first chaos, and so like in my mind that's what I was thinking. But it was highly recommended. I'm like okay, well I'm just gonna listen to it. Man,
Yep.
do I ever appreciate Lorgar now? And you feel so bad for him, and you understand. You understand his actions. They make sense. He's justified in what he's doing. Ah,
Look, there's something to be said about giving somebody what they think they want. And it's very alluring. And that's we were talking about chaos earlier that and we didn't get to, but I thought about it like chaos, back in the day was almost like cartoony.
mm-hmm.
It wasn't, like evil or bad. It was just another, it was kind of cartoonish and stuff. But now I mean, maybe it never was. I don't know. Maybe it never was, but it felt like in my mind it was. And I don't feel that way anymore. I think they've done a good job. I think the game is more fun when there are strong like forces and counter forces in the game, and I think chaos is represented better than it's ever been before.
In terms of the game and lore, is that what you?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
and how again, and coming back to the table or whatever, like when you clash, it seems to have more relevance in some way. I don't know if you feel. Am I just out in the middle of nowhere? Am I on an island right now? But
Oh no, no, I
that's
get.
what it feels like.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no, I get that. I certainly get that because I've been playing since fourth edition, and chaos. You're right. That's you hit it right on the head there. Like it definitely felt cartoony. Kind of like how the orcs are cartoony feeling, right? It's like, oh,
yeah.
chaos, bad, corruption, mutation, bad, right? So bad guy, easy, bad guy. So, but there's so much more flavor now, and there's so many different degrees of chaos that you can
Yeah.
delve into, right? Like there's the demon chaos, or there's like we're gonna use chaos to our advantage, or we are controlled by chaos and we have no choice. Like there's so much. It's not just chaos bad, attack, bad guys. It's not that. It's so much more nuanced than
Well, I
that.
love how the legions approach what they think their involvement with chaos is. They think they all have a special relationship with chaos that chaos doesn't know about, or whatever. Like they're who's using who kind of thing, and I love that tension.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I love on the chaos side is like all the first captains don't seem to get along with their primarchs.
Yeah, yeah, that's something I've noticed, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting how they like have that. Now I know like um was it Lucius is not the first captain, it's Eidolon I think was the first captain, but he represents Slanesh, on the thing, but I don't think any of them like their Primarchs.
Except for Karn. Karn likes his Primarch.
Does he?
Okay,
I mean, that's a sincere question.
respect.
I mean, how does he
Respect.
feel today?
Oh, okay, that's a different story, I guess. Yeah, that's a fair question. I mean, the Karn of today is different from the Karn of the 30K of the early days, isn't he?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah, it feels like he's different. Or is he?
that's the thing. I don't know. I really don't know. But I think that I do think there's friction there today.
Yeah, well, it's different though, because one could certainly argue and be very accurate in this that Angron is very different today than he was back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that's it.
Yeah.
It could be that too.
Oh, I do believe it's all the Primarch's fault. Like I actually, but I think that's where we're designed. Like the Primarchs are so far removed from humanity.
Yeah, true.
Um, and like there's these scenes in the early books, and this is actually talking about Space Marines. Where like Space Marines they're walking across a crowded room. And from the Space Marine side, that's it. They're simply walking across the crowded room. But from the human side, they're actually being mangled and slaughtered as the Space Marines are moving across because they can't just the mass of the Space Marines existing or whatever.
Right.
And the Primarchs are so far beyond that. And that's where I think like Horus was really good at masking that and coming off as suave or whatever he needed. Suave is probably not the best word because I think suave implies maybe some intent or whatever.
Yeah,
Uh,
deception maybe.
yeah, but I don't think he was necessarily doing it. I think in his early stages, he was just simply trying to appear relatable and was like damn good at it,
Mm,
really, really good at it. And other Primarchs couldn't care less, and and
right.
and so they're just so far removed from that. And the closest thing we can really empathize with is the Space Marine, unless you happen to be like me, have a Primarch that is ultimately relatable. But that's one of the things about Sanguinius. I know I'm off on a tangent. Stop me. But
Back to the Blood Angels.
yeah, one of the burdens of Sanguinius and is in how he stacked up against the other Primarchs. They even mentioned this in some of the books. Is he looks like an angel.
He
So
does, yeah.
there's all these feelings that people when they see him could be invoked, and like I think the only question is, does he use that at all? And that there's a difference between what has been historically a loyalist and historically a traitorous Primarch.
Does he need to use it though, or does it just organically happen because of what he is?
That's it. I think we can see that. We can see whatever whatever the physical representation is, and then we attach our little human minds, attach all these other things to it.
Okay, so I just had this thought, and maybe this is intentional by the writers, maybe not, but this is my impression. Primarchs, they represent a certain trait. They have a dominant trait that they represent. And the reason why they are simultaneously hard to relate to and very relatable is because they're so focused on the one. It's like Angron, rage, right? Like, okay, I can relate to rage. Can I relate to 100% rage all the time in everything I do? No. But I can relate to rage, right? So I think, does that make sense?
No, it does. So like they're all tuned into different magnetic frequencies or
Yes,
whatever, and whatever
yes.
you've got on your side is like boop.
Yeah. Like Gilliman, right? Like what? Order. Right? He's like, order.
No one can relate to Gilliman.
No one. Well, I can't.
I'm kidding.
But I know what you mean. I absolutely know. Like, it's hard for me to relate to that. But there's certainly a trait, that trait there that's like, it's a relatable trait. It's a strong trait in some people. So they're like, yes, Ultramarines, order, codex.
I got to give it up to the rules writers too. They finally made, like in the last couple of editions, is the Ultramarines like really, really interesting, both in lore wise and rules wise. And like they've found a way to scratch that itch. I think not to take us on a rules discussion, but it's just neat when that stuff lines up.
You know what? There's a interesting comment here by Brad Lothrop. He said the fractured elements of the Emperor's psyche. I love that. Yeah, that makes. So what would Sanguinius be then?
He's definitely the compassion. He's the.
Would you say? Yeah.
Yeah. That's but there's this warrior aspect of him. Like there is no warrior as good as Sanguinius will ever be. That's it.
Yeah, that's what I hear about. Like his swordsman. Like there's no better swordsman, no better. Yeah.
All the Primarchs they're basically like, for the first half of the whole series, it's all about the Sanguinius contingency. You could basically subtitle the whole first, in my opinion anyway. Like what if we get Sanguinius, then it's a cakewalk. If we don't, then what do we have to do to ensure that he falls?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. What would you say Magnus would be? I know it's completely out of left field, but like power.
Oh no, he is. I think just the arcane knowledge, the inquisitiveness of it, the ability to tap into that underlying, it's not, I don't want to say chaos, but that primal current of the cosmos. That's what Magnus can do.
Yeah. Knowledge. Yeah, I like that. Magnus is human curiosity.
Being able to apply that, like I don't know.
Wisdom.
Look, I don't know there's probably a word in German for this, but I don't know what being able to apply that cosmic knowledge into the physical made manifest. I think Magnus is none better than that.
Okay, we're going to switch gears here for a moment. We're going to do a chaos comment bomb. For those of us who are not familiar with what this is, we're going to leave a link here in the chat, and it's going to lead us to a YouTube video. And we're going to leave a comment on the video. And that's really as simple as that. This person doesn't know that we're going to leave a chaos comment bomb on their video. And so let me just do this. I'm going to post.
Let me play along too.
It's a unmistakable where this is going to bring you. I put like a stack of links there, so just click on the link and leave a comment on this video. And the comment could be something like, Dave and Paul say hi from the Shrine of Chaos. It could be, the Shrine of Chaos falls upon you and you are being Chaos comment bombarded right now, Vito. Because this is Vito's new channel. So for those who don't know, he has started a new YouTube channel, Trident and True Hobbies. He literally just put out this video like a few days ago actually now, and that's it. So leave a comment. I'm actually here. I already left a comment before when he posted it for the first time.
I'm going right now.
And he doesn't know that we're doing this right now. And thank you guys for participating in this, because Chaos Comment Bombs would not be possible without you guys. And it looks as though he responds to, he's responding. So our goal here is to explode his phone. Let's make it so the confusion on his face is palpable when he gets like the ding, 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 ding.
I just left a comment.
Awesome, man. Fantastic. And just for fun, we're going to just refresh the thing here. He started with 66. Where is he at? Come on, what did you guess? 73.
Let's do it. Look, we got to pump these numbers up.
Yeah, we gotta pump them up for sure. 74. Okay, we gotta get at least 80. Khorne, Khorne demands it.
88. We need 88 comments.
Khorne cares not from whence the comments flow, as long as there are 88 at least. Yeah, 82. Okay, yeah, we're gonna get there. It's very good.
People do often compare the Blood Angels to the World Eaters because there's that combat element to it.
Yes, yeah, I think that is, and then the red. So, yeah, and then the bloodlust, the rage. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of similarities. Absolutely, which that might be why I play both, and I love both. I mean, nothing beats World Eaters, but Blood Angels is like 98%. It's very close.
Let me tell you how against this I am. If I'm ever watching a painting red tutorial and it starts off with Khorne red, I just click it off.
What if it's like the only red you have available and you're painting Blood Angels? Would you not do it? Is it blasphemy to do it?
Number one, I'm never without enough red and the right red to paint Blood Angels. Never without. You can stop me in an airport, I could probably whip you up a squad. I'm kidding, of course, kidding a little bit, but no, I've actually got a very a red recipe that works for me. Red is a very difficult color. Red is one of those that the products, have gotten so much better about how to paint red nowadays, and I like a very bright red. Like, I actually learned a couple of weeks ago that the way I paint Blood Angels, the scheme that I use for I don't know if it's going to come through. I've got one handy. Can you even see? I don't know. Yes. But you see how the rims on the shoulder?
Yeah, like
they're
orange?
Black. Oh, okay. The rims of the shoulder are black.
Black. Okay.
And that hasn't been the case for like 3 editions, but yet there they are. That's the way I do it, because I didn't stop to look, and now there's no red there's no black on the shoulder pads. But hey,
Hey,
I'm an old man.
That's it. You're looking good for the old man that you are, man.
Thank you.
I must say. And it's the wargaming. It's the games. It's the learning that's what it is. It's keeping the brain strong and sharp. Honestly,
I believe that. I really do believe that. I think that this is when we're playing these kind of like mental gymnastics with ourselves. Even if it's no matter how competitive or casual that you are, and both are completely. Look, this is your hobby. You're spending your time. Don't let anybody ever tell you to not do it the way you want to do it, kind of thing. That's one of the ways I live by, or whatever. But looking at the stuff, doing the stuff, constantly thinking about it, I think does help keep us sharp.
Yeah, 100% I do, man. And like learning new rules, it's not an easy thing. You gotta be really, you gotta have a certain mind to want to do it and not think it's painful, and even if you do think it's painful, to do it and to understand it and comprehend it, and then to teach others, and then to do this often, learning new rules often. That's a brain exercise if I've ever seen one, man. Like on a regular basis.
Keeping up, like even if you're playing it against your one buddy, like you're playing this game because you'd like to win a few games, and if you're constantly evolving and one-upping each other, or changing list around, or he brings over something like devious with his faction that he loves to play, like orcs or whatever, he's come up with his new orc build or whatever, and then the next week you've got to figure out a way to beat it. and then he's planning on how to trick you, not trick, but to get the leverage on you or whatever.
Yep.
It's fun. I mean, I really enjoy that as part of it.
Here at the mini wargaming bunker, that we have this area of space that we're developing into an escape room, and I had a team of
Nice.
interns come in from university, which is a city over from us, right? And so there was 3 interns working on it, helping me with it. And they're all gamers, not miniature war gamers, but gamers. And so they're actually going to school for game development and video game design and all that stuff, right? And so there was this word thrown around a lot that reminds me about what we're talking about right now, which is rewarding. So when you learn a new rule set, the fact that you did that is very rewarding to your brain, right? It's like, yeah, I did this
Okay.
thing. I accomplished it.
Is it like it sets off an endorphins or something like that?
Yeah, the dopamine. Okay. That dopamine, and yeah, endorphins too, but like specifically it's that dopamine rush.
I just remembered a word and thought it was appropriate.
Yeah. It is, yes. Epinephrine, that's also a good word we can throw in. Either way, good feeling, that chemical release from brain. And it's rewarding, right? Because you learn this, you accomplish this thing, and then you share it with someone else, and then you play the game. There's little things that happen along the game that are also rewarding. They're little rewards, right? Like, oh, okay, I'm going to tick this, I'm going to gather this, I'm going to earn this, I'm going to find this. Are going to outmaneuver you.
You hear the sound, the achievement bell.
It's the achievement bell, right? So it's like the constant dopamine, it's the constant rewards of the game happening in a different way, though, because it's interacting with another person right there in person, mostly. And at the end, when you win, it's like the dopamine, but it has to be done within the confines of the rule set that you both agree to, and it has to be sanctioned by that framework. So once that is done, that's like the ultimate dopamine. From what you get.
Oh, the constructs either that the game is set up or you've agreed upon in your own brain. Okay.
Yeah. So like you have this like mental psychic agreements. Okay, we agree to this rule set. All right. So now that we both playing by the same rules, now we're going to use our mental faculty to try to see who can do the best and let the dice gods prevail. Because there's also that too. There's that the element that's out of our control.
The fate cubes.
The fate cubes. Exactly. And I think Winter's SEO, he said it best when he said that it's the dice really that forge the narrative. See what I did there?
Oh yeah. Look, hey, if I can get mentioned in the same sentence as them, I'm doing something right.
Which I absolutely agree with. Like it's you can math hammer out like crazy and be statistically probable to do whatever outcome you think is going to happen, but ultimately it's the dice. And when that happens, those are the best. When you're not expecting that, that's another type of chemical rush in your brain. It's like, 2-inch charge, fail. Reroll, fail. And so it's that.
There. It's like the worst feeling in the world.
It's the worst, right? Like worst yet most memorable. And that's those are the things that stick out. The things that you expect to happen when you're playing, it's like, okay, you're going along here, Oh, I didn't expect that. Boom, it goes up, and it's like, oh, that's the thing you remember. Oh, I should have killed you because I charged you and I psychicked you beforehand. How come? Why did you deny my power there? The smite didn't go off.
The burn hand learns best.
That's right, absolutely. But that is part of the reward. It's so rewarding at the end, like even throughout. But especially at the end, like after, it's like, man, that was a good match. That was a good battle. That was a good story that we told. And that was created together.
I love that. And applying that to the whole hobby experience. I mean, you think about from the moment the whole experience of selecting the models to purchase, to getting the models home, or opening that box the first time, assembling the way that you want to assemble them, painting them the way you want to paint them, and then playing the way you want to play with them. Like it is a constant rush of everything you're describing, I think.
Yeah. And you know what? You're exactly right. And I believe that wholeheartedly. All the mental decisions that you go through. And I think
I love it.
On that high note, we're going to end it for today. So thank you very much, Paul, for joining us in the Shrine of Chaos, and everyone
Shrine of Chaos
tuning in. Check out Forge the Narrative. I provided links here in the posts, so check out the YouTube channel. Also, Spotify. If you listen to podcasts, there's links in the vid description below.
Anywhere you can find podcasts, you can pretty much find the show, and love it. If people aren't familiar with it, check it out. It means a lot.
And it's fantastic. I mean, I've been a guest. Thank you very much for including me on your show, and it's great. Continue doing what you're doing, man. You're one of the pillars of the community, especially the podcast community in our industry and our hobby. And it's, I mean, everyone, like, If people haven't heard of you, then it's because they don't listen to podcasts, or they don't play Blood Angels, or they just, or they're not online because.
Well, thank you so much for those kind words, and thank you very much for having me on. It means a lot. Like, I mean, same with you. Nothing but respect for everything you guys do and the awareness you bring to the hobby, the enthusiasm, like the infectious enthusiasm that you guys bring for the hobby. I think it's monumental. It's epic.
Thank you for that, and thank you guys for tuning in. 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Shrine of Chaos. Stay tuned next week. Happy working.
Thanks, chat.